What's going on, good people? This is Crypto Minimalist. We got a good one for you today. The graphic I have up on the screen is the typical chart or comparison of layer ones you'll see out there on social media or YouTube. This one is from Hex McKenzie on Twitter. It looks great, and I think it does a really good job at spreading the word about PulseChain and helping with global adoption. Why I wanted to make my own chart and comparison is because these gains are either measured in days from the all-time low or from launch. I prefer to measure from the ICO or sacrifice date, and I'll explain why in this video. I'm also going to be disproving two misconceptions about Pulse that is commonly used as FUD. Statement 1, too much money was sacrificed for PulseChain. It can't do very many X's. Statement 2, all new cryptos dip below the sacrifice or ICO price after launch. For PulseChain, I couldn't disagree more. Here we have the only Ethereum Pulse comparison chart you'll ever need. I think it's fire, the best one I've personally ever seen. It took me several hours to compile all the information. I believe it's all correct. Feel free to fact check me. We have a lot of information here. I'm going to try to break it down while still making this video not too long. I'll start off going over this Ethereum background of their ICO. You can find the history of the Ethereum presale on the Ethereum Foundation blog. Vitalik wrote this on the day the ICO started, July 22nd, 2014, and it lasted 2 weeks. It ended on August 8th. They sold 50 million ETH, and they raised 17.3 million USD equivalent. The average ICO price that people bought into ETH was about 31 cents. I guess I didn't realize this. It actually took over a year for Ethereum to launch after the ICO in 2015. And this is the first time where I thought to myself, this is eerily similar to how PulseChain's playing out. Even when the token presale started, within about a week of each other in July. Obviously 7 years later, because PulseChain raised so much more money, we're much lower average presale price, 3 zeros and a 1, and we're getting close to about a year as well. In a couple weeks, it will have been 10 months since the sacrifice. Now, where am I getting this 697 million raised for PulseChain? On pulselead.xyz, it shows that 670 million in the first 5 days where sacrificers received multiplier bonuses. And then you have to add in the sends donations because they're not included in this number. And that was 27 million for a total of 697 million. Now, technically, the sacrifice amount was 13 or 14 billion. But this is mostly from the Hex OA sacrificing Hex. So you can't really count that as a real liquid money. The Hex OA has never sold Hex. I don't expect them to sell Pulse either. If you don't understand that, then Richard Hart projects are probably going to drive you crazy. Anyway, we're going with 697 million. Okay, so here's where I'm going to destroy that first FUD point. LOL, sacrifice too high, market cap too high. Oh, Pulse won't be able to move very high. If it does a 10x, it'll be in the top 20 already. The upside's so limited, too many people sacrificed. Best case scenario, it does 100x because that'll put it at a 70 billion market cap, and only Ethereum and Bitcoin's market cap will be bigger. Wah. I'm looking at the daily volume back in 2014 when ETH ICO'd, and they raised more money in 2 weeks than the daily volume was. In July 2014, for the entire crypto market, the daily volume was about 14.5 million. And when you compare that to July of last year, crypto is so much bigger. There's way more money involved now. With a daily volume of almost 80 billion, 697 million is a drop in the bucket. There's a lot of money out there that can come in and pump Pulse. When we compare the 2014 and the 2021 volume, while the Pulse sacrifice raised 40 times the amount of money, the Ethereum ICO raised 134 times more economic energy in 2014 value than Pulse did, considering how much bigger crypto was in 2021. It's not even close. If PulseChain is copying the Ethereum blockchain, there's more than enough economic energy now for Pulse to replicate Ethereum price appreciation. I'm not worried about the sacrifice amount or the market cap amount in the slightest. Now we're going to move on to the funnest part of this chart, I think, the historical price appreciation of Ethereum after it launched. I'm going to be able to destroy the second FUD point that I can't stand, which is all ICOs dump after launch. Pulse will launch under the sacrifice amount. Wait for the dip to buy. Good luck with that. Pulse dumping on launch is pure FUD. All right, let me explain how this timeline is laid out here. As I mentioned earlier, I am measuring price from the ICO/sacrifice start date and not from launch. First off, especially when you're comparing PulseChain with Ethereum, since the timeline is already so similar, it makes more sense just to continue with that trend and projecting prices. And then number two, I think because we've been waiting so long, there's just so much pent-up demand and monetary energy ready to flow into Pulse. It's just not the same as some of these other projects where they have a funding round and they're launching within months, if not weeks. We've almost waited an entire year for PulseChain. There's a lot of hype and FOMO built into this upcoming price. This top line is days from the Ethereum launch date, and I kind of stagger them into quarter years. So 1 year from sacrifice, 1 year and 3 months, 1.5 years, and then so on. Price in that quarter for Ethereum. Have the X's from the ICO price at that time. Like I said, we have time increments in years, and then we have months. Then these dates for Pulse are the corresponding dates with the Ethereum. So when we look at this first time section, 380 days from the Ethereum ICO, which is about a week after the launch date, Ethereum reached a high price of $2.83, which was a 9.1x. And if we measure that same time frame for Pulse, that will be on July 30th of this year at just a little over 1 year. And for Pulse, a 9.1x of the sacrifice price would be 3091. So just shy of a tenth of a penny. These first two price comparisons are what I want to focus on for the rest of the video. Feel free to check out all the rest of the prices farther out into the future, play around with them. We're going to be using this chart in future videos and we'll examine them more closely then. But right now I really just want to focus on the time frame right after Pulse launch. What I really want to do is dispel that FUD point that Pulse is going to dip below the sacrifice price either upon launch or shortly after launch. That thought is either pure ignorance or these individuals are just trying to FUD because they missed out on the Pulse sacrifice. If Ethereum didn't dip below 31 cents, there's no way Pulse is going to dip. No way. I contend you will never be able to buy PLS for 0.0001 ever again. Most sacrificers got prices in the 4 zeros with a 9 or an 8. But if your Pulse bag's empty, just look at this chart. There's plenty of opportunity. It's still early. Let's get back to talking about Ethereum. So ETH did about a 10x with the launch buying pressure. And then it did dip for the next 74 days down to 43 cents. I don't think Pulse is going to dip that far because I actually think Pulse is probably going to go up higher than ETH did. But Pulse will dip at some point in the first month or two. It's just a question of how high Pulse goes first for how low that dip will get. The big dip, though, is FUD. If back in 2014 you missed the Ethereum ICO period, you never got another chance at that ICO price. So I think when we measure gains in the future for Pulse, we will use that sacrifice price as the all-time low to measure from. All right, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. My biggest takeaways here are that it looks like a 10x from the Pulse sacrifice price is probably the floor for how high of a price we're going to see in the first week or first month. So a 10x at a minimum. And nobody really knows how much higher the ceiling is going to be for PulseChain. I think if pre-bridge or post-bridge, you can get into Pulse before it's 10x'd, that's going to end up being a good entry point. Because as we saw in the chart, there's a lot of meat left on that bone. Ethereum did a 1000x in a little over 1,000 days from its ICO. And that was with a much greater share of the total crypto market at the time. I'm going to be doing some more PulseChain comparison videos to other layer ones, like maybe Tron, Cardano, and Binance Smart Chain. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video.
We're just up and to the right.